Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Lizzie Plain, the Channel Marketing Manager at Perfecto. Just wanted to welcome you to our fifth in our partner webinar series. The topic today is around security. We're calling it Helping Customers Get Comfortable with the Cloud. Our speaker today is Chief Information Security Officer here at Perfecto, Greg Johnson. So I will hand it over to him to take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good day. Again, my name is Gregory Johnson. I'm the CISO here at Perfecto Mobile. I've been in the business now for about 25 years. I realized that yesterday. So I not only bring my 2+ years here of Perfecto experience, but a number of other years across multiple disciplines in this space. And what I'd like to do today is just kind of talk to you a little bit about security as it relates to not just Perfecto solutions, but SaaS solutions in general, and really kind of reinforce for you some of the things that you're already doing, and really kind of challenge us all to look at the way we deliver or engage our customers when it comes to security. I think one of the things I'd like to put out there up front is that we do a really good job of selling our tools, our products, and our solutions to our customers. And right around the time when we want to sell security, we often kind of turn into these used car salesmen, where we're trying to not only convince the customer that this is a good thing, but we actually know what we're talking about. So I want to kind of challenge our own belief systems a little bit and challenge us to look at the way that we deliver and maybe even give us some reminders of the things that we're doing well and how we can just keep doing them to help the customer be successful. So with that, I'll take questions at the end, but I have just several slides here to just point to several key things that I think will help you as you engage your customer. So our agenda this morning or this day is as follows. I want to kind of talk about understanding the customer. I want to talk a little bit about vendor engagement. We want to also talk about the data and risk assurance. And then at the end, we'll talk about any questions you have, and then I'll have some closing comments for you. So first thing I'd like to talk about is fear. I think when it comes to security and when we're talking about our customers, inevitably we're going to have to deal with the reality that our customers are afraid of something. They're afraid of their own perceptions. They're afraid of some internal turmoil. There's some business process internally they may be trying to avoid, or it could just be their own perceptions about what's going on in the market. I think the first thing we have to do is validate that the customer has an experience that they're bringing to the table. And it doesn't matter how good your solution is, the customer wants to know that you understand where they're coming from. So I think what we need to do is embrace that concern, that fear, that trepidation they may have, and just manage that fear with facts. Understand where they're coming from, give them the assurance that you are here to help them feel comfortable, and then approach the entire situation with as many facts as possible to help offset that fear, whatever it may be. You won't know going in. They may volunteer it, but it could be something that you're not even anticipating. So understand your customer, understand what they're trying to get to do, which is all part of your normal engagement process, but be prepared to address their concerns with as much information as you can to help them understand that you're an expert in this space, or your team is a set of experts. There's some things I would encourage you to avoid when trying to emphasize your security posture or the security posture of any solution, particularly Perfecto, and that's to avoid the pitfalls of certain types of language, and that's the never been hacked or we've never failed an audit. While these things may be true, the world as it stands today is a dangerous place. So just as quickly as you say it, we could be exposed and not even know it. So instead of saying the nevers, try to de-emphasize that and say that we're diligent. Try to make sure that you let the customer know that you're as aware of things as you can be without necessarily putting you into a position where you can't back out or you can't say we're doing as best we can. I find that most of the security people I talk to key in on those folks that say never. Another perspective to add is that some of these companies that we're selling to have bigger budgets than we'll ever have. So if they're struggling with security and they're spending X number of times more money on security than we are, the last thing we want to tell them is that we have some secret sauce that they don't. It sometimes can be misleading, or we could be putting ourselves into a bad situation if we're somehow trying to prove that we're an expert that we're really not. The reality of the entire space is nobody has the answer, and that's what I want to talk about on the next slide. The real-world risk and reality. If you haven't spent any time looking at various online trades and reports, there's a lot of information out there about what's happening in the companies. I have several references here that I think are very useful for you. So the first thing I would say here is that international terrorism, global socioeconomic concerns are real issues. We're not just talking about a product in a silo. We're talking about the world as it is today. It's a very dangerous place, and this is where most of our customers' fear comes from. They have credit cards in their wallet that represent companies that have been hacked. Data has been lost. Even our own government has been compromised in several of its agencies. So the threat of losing data is very, very real. According to Stop Hacker, nearly 3/4 of all Americans have fallen victim to some type of cybercrime. So this is from 2015. And if you think about the way these articles are written, they've always kind of estimate low. So you can assume just about everybody's had some type of data loss, regardless of who you are. And again, in the recent survey, this was back in 2015, it was reported 90% of all businesses suffered some type of computer hack over the last 12 months. So again, this is just about every company on the face of the planet. And if they haven't reported it, it's probably because they're not looking for it, or they're afraid of the reputational impact of telling the truth. All of us have fallen victim to some type of issue. And most of the time, it's what we do to ourselves. And then one of the reports that I pay close attention to that other CISOs pay attention to, and I encourage you to look at, is the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report. It's an annual report that's free to download, and it's very, very interesting as it breaks out data across multiple industries and what the issues are that they're struggling with. And if you look at the report year over year, most of the issues have to do with the external threat. So if you go into a company and you're trying to sell an external solution, they're really going to kind of key in on this fact that, are you really secure? Are you really going to be able to help us? And what's the real threat of extending my services or my offering out to your cloud solution? So we have to just be careful. Again, a couple of highlights from that report are no local industry organization is bulletproof when it comes to compromise of data, and the attacker is not coming from the inside the house. So these are things that are always going to be at the forefront. This is going to be the key challenge in trying to make someone comfortable with a solution. The comfort has to come from something other than you just have a great product. So kind of turning the page slightly, if you understand that you're going up against a tough nut, basically with trying to overcome someone's fear, there has to be some other reason for them to talk to you. And most of the time, it's the risk versus reward conversation. The need to extend the business and to make money is always going to outweigh the fear of doing nothing. And what we have to continue to tap into is the customer's need to grow the business. They will find a way to accept risk regardless of who they are if there's enough money on the table. And right now, in various spaces, as customers look to mobile or they look to extend in the cloud solutions for cost savings, regardless of what those objectives are, they will talk to you because this need to save money and be extensible far outweighs the need to look internally and try to make sure that nothing bad happens to us. So some of the most popular reasons for going to the cloud, and again, you may know this, but it's always good for us all to kind of be on the same page. Lower costs, minimize the on-site footprint, have an on-demand infrastructure, which is always very important for our IT organizations. They never have enough budget. Unlimited and automatic upgrades, redundancy and business recovery, all of which every customer on the face of the planet struggles with, regardless of their budget. So the most common business objectives are to reduce costs and improve time to market, and ultimately do more with less. This is where the play for Perfecto really comes in, because as customers try to do more in the mobile space, they can never have enough people or enough resources, and certainly the idea of being able to automate and instrument the processes that they do have is a real key selling point. So that while the risk may be there, the reward to be able to be faster to the market is always going to be the best play we can have. Now, if you're able to sell that to the first-line business manager, the next challenge is how do you make sure that the rest of the team that manager reports into has the information they need to support this business decision. So this is where I go back to your various customer engagement programs. Every single one of you has a methodology that you use on a day-to-day basis to engage your customers. I don't advise you changing the methodology. I just emphasize a couple of things, regardless of what it is that you do, kind of key in on a couple of things here. Early in the process, engage all of the business stakeholders. I think traditionally there's been this fear, again, of getting the security guys involved too early because they will say no. And I actually take the alternate approach. Get them involved early, give them too much information, understand what their potential objections are going to be, and then give them more information. And then as you get closer to the sale, they become much more of an advocate of, oh, okay, I understand what you're trying to do. I understand that the risk is fairly low, and okay, I just need you to go through my risk assessment process, and we'll add a number to this particular exercise. And it's, again, we'll talk about what that number means. And if you pass, you'll be okay to go ahead and do business with us. Once they're involved, they become a much more easy partner to deal with. The threat that they pose on the internal organization becomes much lower, and you actually have an ability to create a relationship that wasn't there before. So I'm always an advocate of getting to know the risk manager early and often to understand the politics of the internal organization and get them engaged so that they're well informed. If you don't have a risk manager, there's usually some type of other person responsible for the risk assessment process. This could be the vendor management team or any financial manager. But to be sure, there's someone in the organization that's ready and charged with coming in and saying, hey, stop, wait, what are you doing and why are you doing this? Another thing to think about within your customer engagement program is to be wary of the disconnects among the stakeholders. So just like you would want to bring your business owner in and they may want to bring some of their key advocates in, you may want to be wary if there's some other issue in the organization. And some of the ones that I've encountered is that there's a program to reduce risk, but then there's this rapid expansion, which causes its own internal struggles. The personality types that go with the business growing versus trying to protect the organization can be pretty strong. So be aware of those things. And some of the things you may want to think about is, have they had a data breach in the recent past? If they have, then they're going to be a lot more risk adverse than maybe you are comfortable with. So know that going in. Understand the reputation of your business owner in the organization. So if they have a strong success track record and they know how to deliver, generally speaking, they'll know how to work through the different internal politics and can be a strong advocate for you. If they're somewhat of a new person in the company and they just have great ideas, they may need to engage some other people to get that sponsorship that you're looking for. Again, all of you know these things, but again, I find that we have a lot more success when we have the right people at the table. And encourage a healthy internal dialogue. If you happen to bring these stakeholders together, and if you sit back for a moment and watch the body language in the room where you realize that they need to have an internal conversation in order for this to move forward, encourage it. Give them as much information as possible to have a healthy dialogue, and then let them work out the internal challenges that they may have. Again, you may never know what you're walking into, and generally speaking, there's always something else going on that has nothing to do with what you're selling. So anticipate those things and try to allow enough time in your sales cycle to let those things work themselves out. Again, all of these things contribute to how to make them comfortable, and oftentimes it's just the people portion that you're trying to manage. Ultimately, we're trying to build trust, and that's not easy. Be aware of the disposition of the stakeholders or the risk owners. Again, there could be something there that you're not aware of, but the risk owners in particular understand what's happening in the organization at a much deeper level than maybe some of the folks on the business. So some of the questions, and we're going to talk about data next, some of the questions I would ask of the risk owners are, again, have you had a data breach? Are you concerned about these things? Do you have a program of extending into the cloud today in other spaces? But also understand who else that they have to manage. And here's some things, just 3 quick bullets. Do the application and infrastructure teams speak different languages? In just about every single company, that's the case. You can have a great sale or to a QA person, but when it comes to the IT guy who has to implement it, they know nothing about the space that they're actually working with. They know nothing about mobile technology. They know nothing about the application. So when you talk about trying to open up a firewall rule, well, you just did everything right, but the firewall guys don't like opening any rules. We've seen it time and time again that there's internal politics with the smallest steps, and these things can be stumbling blocks for us. There's some insight to the business direction that most IT folks have if you have any kind of budget, but the reality is the bigger plans for how we're going to grow the business often aren't IT conversations. They're not necessarily tuned in. So again, you have to somehow get these people that need to help you deliver to the table quickly so that they can help you. And again, always be aware that if there's been a breach in this company, and we've already learned that just about every company on the planet has had one, you need to be able to have a good story to tell so that you can address that fear up front. When you talk about Perfecto, when you talk about the data considerations with these companies, there's just a few key points. When you do get to the risk assessment process, it's not an issue of how they feel about you, it's just a number calculation. And if you fall on the low end of it, somewhere in the green, you're very low risk, very low impact, just you can move forward. If you happen to fall into the red, then they have a lot of concerns and they want to put a brake on the project. Typically, we find at Perfecto we somehow fall right around the middle in the yellow initially, and then we have to do some negotiations. And that's okay. We want to make sure that regardless of where we fall, we address the concerns, we're flexible in our response, and we give the customer what they need. So there's some things we want to just make sure that you're aware of when it comes to Perfecto. The customer data is the most sensitive asset. We try to limit the use of real data whenever possible, but it's very possible our customers will use live data in their testing. We don't encourage it, but the reality is many of the big customers out there don't redact data. So let's go in knowing that up front, and then let's make sure we build the proper control framework to offset that. And then when we get through this impact versus probability matrix, we can try to push those numbers as far down as quickly as possible. The person doing the risk assessment is always going to consider the worst case scenario. Who's accessing the data? What happens if they walk off with it? What happens if we're exposed? If the orange jumpsuits come, is it going to be because of this particular solution that we bought? It's not an unusual process. Every company goes through it. They all have a slightly different spin on it. Again, get comfortable with it. Ask for these people to be involved up front. I can't emphasize enough that the more we know about this particular part of their business process, the more we can be helpful for them. Enable the customer risk analysis process. We, as Perfecto, have done a number of different things to provide assurance, but one of the biggest investments we made was in our NIST 800-171 analysis, which provides a nice, lengthy, detailed report of our entire security program, but also provides an impact analysis of how we use the data. So this is a third-party assessment of what we do as a business that we can give to any company on the planet as a starting point for where we are as a risk organization, as a company that manages risk. And then it helps with the overall assessment. We still go through the entire process, but it's a nice third-party validation. Risk assurance. This is ultimately what you're being asked to do in any security conversation. This is where the comfort comes in, is you have to assure the customer that you have a good story to tell. So the Perfecto story is as follows. We have a defined risk management program. We have a team of people led by me that works on this around the clock. We align with the industry standards and we keep current with changes. We're constantly being audited and we're constantly making adjustments based on new information. We have multiple third-party attestations to the program maturity. So where our audit from last year is different than this year. And we're constantly looking at how we can make sure that those new findings are baked into the product in such a way where we're delivering the highest value. And then we also look at certifications across multiple industries. So We have SOC 2 and PCI. Even though we don't have any sensitive data in the system, we still go after those certifications to show and prove that we're taking this very, very seriously as an organization. So we're not just walking the walk, but we're implementing the controls, and we're constantly evaluating ourselves against global standards. Assurance implies trust, but at the end of the day, everyone wants evidence. So we should be ready to walk into any customer anywhere on the planet and say, we have not only the best product for you, but we also have the proof that we're good at what we do, not just as a product company, but as a company that takes security very seriously. And then also consider that risk management is a continuous improvement process. So it could be that somewhere in the risk assessment process, the customer has a finding. Don't panic. It's okay if they have a finding. We're here to partner with them. If they find something we didn't find, that's all part of the partnership. We'll address it. We'll get to it. We'll find a way to make things better so that ultimately, no matter what, the product is a better service for everybody to consume. Because what one customer finds today is something we avoid for 10 other customers tomorrow. And here's the Perfecto story in one snapshot. This is a slide that you can take into any company in the world, and they can get a sense of, okay, these guys have a good story to tell. Here's our certifications, and we do more than this, but this is, again, just a quick snapshot of what we do. We still have to go through the rest of the process. We still have to provide additional evidence, and we still have to pass what I call the sniff test. But if you show this to most business people, they will say, okay, this is something I can take to my security team and feel good about it. This is the basis of building comfort. This is the basis of building trust. And at the end of the day, once you combine the initial trust with results, you have a good relationship. So in closing, know your customer, align the offering with the business problem, which is what we all do anyway, but make sure you tackle the risk story up front. Don't leave this off. Don't be afraid to tackle it. Don't be afraid to put it right up front in the customer's face and feel good about it. Feel confident in it. Let's not be used car salesmen. Let's be just as professional on the security side as we are with everything else we do. With that, I'll open it up to questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. All right, we're just going to go on mute for about a minute, collect everybody's questions, and then we'll come back and answer them live. All right, we've got a couple questions keyed up. Why don't we start with this one? Number one, how do you manage personal information?
It's a great question. So again, the solution itself doesn't require the use of any personal data at all. We don't, as a business process, require the processing, storage, or transmission of personal data. But again, the likelihood that a customer could use live data is very strong. So we normally catch that right up front, either in the selling process or definitely during the risk assessment process. So if a customer identifies that they're using live data as part of their testing, we want to work with their security team to make sure we build the right control framework. Usually that involves everything from end-to-end encryption to locking down the systems to hardening the devices themselves that we're hosting. So we've had customers who have gone down to the point of installing their own MDM or mobile device manager on their hosted devices so that they can push policy to ensure that there's no leakage of data anywhere in the entire stream of the transmission. So again, multiple layers of encryption, multiple layers of infrastructure controls and application controls on top of it. One of the things we pride ourselves on is being very, very flexible so that if our base controls are not enough and the customer wants to do something more with the devices that they own, we're flexible with that. Generally speaking, when it comes to something like an MDM, the only thing we require is a slight modification to their base policy so that we can monitor the device. But again, these are their physical devices that they own. So again, there's no reason why they can't install their own security agents on that if they require that. And generally, that's enough for customers with sensitive data. The other controls that we have built into the application itself is wiping of devices and things like that, and that's something you can build into your scripts very easily. So that ultimately, if the data is in the process, it doesn't have to remain there. You can wipe it at your own convenience. And again, that works out for 99% of our customers with this type of use case.
Great. Second question, And I think I understand what this person is going for. Do we have a tool to demo the following? I'm guessing the security overview that you just went through. Do we have any way of showing people?
Yeah, so generally speaking, when you do a demo of the product, we will feature some of the application controls, like the clean white functionality. We can show you in the demo very easily how to restore a device back to its default state. Other things that we do tours so that you can see the physical security. We don't necessarily expose our firewall rule base or anything like that. But if you want to see a video of the facilities that we're hosting at, you can go online and see those. We can always schedule tours with customers to any of our data centers across the globe, or you can actually just do a demo where you can see a lot of this functionality for yourself right within the application.
Great. This is a pretty easy question. Are the mobile devices on the cloud, or are they real devices?
These are real devices. We don't do any type of emulation or anything like that. That's one of our key differentiators.
Great. All right, a couple more. This one's pretty specific. We have a customer in the national healthcare space. How can we assure them a cloud service is secure?
Right. So, again, I would want to understand the customer's business use cases for what they want to accomplish. Generally speaking, we know what they want to try to do, develop some type of mobile application, but we want to get even deeper than that is, again, how are you using the data? Be very specific in terms of what their regulations and what's regulating them. We obviously know that the UK has multiple laws across the union and even the member states. So the assurance has to be in the form of understanding the use case, building the control framework against that use case, because it may not be one size fits all, and then making sure that we provide the audit evidence that matches the compliance and regulatory requirements that they have.
Great. What are the options to connect to the corporate network?
You can't connect to the corporate network. Oh, I'm sorry. So this is you want your corporate users to connect to this cloud. So again, the Perfecto solution is available just as a regular web interface. So if you're giving your users access to the internet today, we're available that way. Generally speaking, that's not the default deployment. We will either whitelist based on you want certain networks to have access to the Perfecto cloud, or we'll put in an IPsec VPN where, again, we'll limit the access based on a very finite set of rules on who's going to be accessing the system. So it's never an open-ended, everybody can hit the portal. But again, that comes out of the customer's requirements. Who do they want to have access it? Where are they coming from? Typically, we'll see that there's corporate users and there may be some additional testers in India or some other organization. And then we'll just create all those proper connections and tunnels as a result of the data flow. That's all part of the initial scoping and design of the solution.
This question is going back to the real devices versus emulators. We have real devices. Do you know how many we have?
Just here in our Wakefield data center, we have somewhere in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 devices hosted today. When we start trying to take public cloud devices and add that in, we're in the tens of thousands across the globe. Great.
And this one looks like the last question, so if anyone else has some questions, now would be the time to submit them. This question is, we as an SI also have a secure data center. Why would our why would Perfecto's data center be more secure than ours?
It's a great question. I don't know what your data center is, and we're really not in the business of saying our data center is better than yours. Really what we're offering is a complete package of solutions. So the cloud itself can be extended to the on-premise, and you can host it within any of your facilities, but what you're really trying to get with a Perfecto package is the complete hands-off, so you don't have to do the device management. And really that's what it comes down to, because on the back end there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining and caring and feeding of devices, and you have to have people that are going to be on site 24/7 to be able to be there to address the issues that come up. And it's just normal issues that happen with any mobile device or any application testing that happens. So you're not only getting device management, asset management, You're getting that 24/7 support while also being in a secure facility. So it's not just about providing the infrastructure, but it's also providing the services that go on top of it. And then get that all bundled in as part of one package, I think is a really nice differentiator. And again, we do have customers that do like to go on-premise, mostly because of security concerns. But once they have to do all the care and feeding for themselves, the cost-value proposition really does become a different story altogether.
Awesome. Well, it looks like that's the last question. So, Greg, were you going to leave contact info for these folks?
Yes. Again, sorry I didn't have it on my slide, but if anybody has any follow-on questions, I'm always available. You can reach me at gregj@perfectomobile.com. I also take phone calls. You can call me anytime. My phone number is 781-281-5304. Email or phone call or text, I'm always available to any of our partners at any time. My sales guys love calling me, and my wife usually picks up the phone, and she knows them all by name. So don't hesitate to call or email me if you need me.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Greg.
Thank you, everybody.
Just a little housekeeping. We will be sending the recording a little bit later today once we have it uploaded. So expect an email probably later this afternoon. Thanks again, Greg.
Thank you.